Welcome back to another edition of the Prospect Profile, a mini-series we do here within the Atlanta Braves franchise, where we go over top prospects from AA Mississippi up to AAA Gwinnett. Last time on the Prospect Profile, we went over starting pitching prospect Cyrus Hirsch, and now this time we're going to be staying in Mississippi for first base / corner outfielder James Cornelius. Cornelius is a 69 overall, C potential. He's a switch hitter at the plate, throws right-handed. He stands 6'2", weighs 232 pounds, and he is from Ohio. So Cornelius, like I mentioned, first base / corner outfielder. We'll get into a bit more about the positions later on in the episode, but as far as how Cornelius is as a player, he is a solid all-around bat. He can hit for average, he can hit for a decent amount of power. He's not going to be hitting, he's not going to be the next Freddie Freeman in our lineup hitting 40 home runs in a season. He's got basically 50 power both ways. So, I mean, I would say he's probably good for around, if he was in a major league lineup for an entire season, I would say he's good for maybe 15 home runs, give or take a few more, a few less. He doesn't have the most electrifying power, but the guy is definitely no slouch at the plate either. He's going to be able to crank a few out of the park, so 50 contacts, still decently impressive. I would say 15-ish is around the power output to expect from him. And then as far as the average goes, he's got a 60 contact versus righties, a 71 versus lefties, with a 65 vision as well. So he's going to be able to get a bat on ball a decent amount and get on base. So I would say that a 270, 280 average is around what to expect from a prime James Cornelius. I wouldn't think he's going to be like a guy who hits 320 and wins the Triple Crown or something like that, but he's definitely, I would say 270, 280 is probably a reasonable thing to expect from Cornelius. He also has a 70 clutch rating, which, I mean, is a rating that helps guys drive runners in, hit with runners in scoring position, and also in big moments. So Cornelius, possibly a guy who would be able to drive in a decent amount of runs in the middle half of the order as well. And for a guy who plays first base as his primary position for most of his career, but also can play the corner outfield, you would expect that he's not really that good of a fielder and he's just kind of there to be for his bat. But he's got a great bat and he's also pretty darn good in the field. He's got a 74 fielding rating, a 64 reaction. The reaction's not the best, but I mean, it's definitely good. He's a big guy. He's a first baseman, so with a 64 reaction is pretty good to have. 74 fielding is pretty darn good as well. And then he's got a pretty good arm with an 81 arm strength, 54 arm accuracy. So he can really fire those balls in there from the outfield if you do want to put him in the corner outfield position. And he's also decently fast. He's not a typical first baseman where you're going to throw him out there. You're going to have a guy with 30 speed playing one of the corner outfield positions. He's got 53 speed. So, I mean, the guy can get to balls decently fast. He's not going to have trouble. He's not going to be like a Billy Hamilton out in center field or something. He's not going to be an Ender Inciarte to go with the Braves reference, but I mean, he's definitely not going to have troubles getting to ordinary balls either with a 53 speed. He's got decent base running aggression too, so he's pretty aggressive on the base path with 62 of that rating. And like I mentioned, he is a first baseman / corner outfielder, but as we all know, the Braves have Freddie Freeman on the roster, and Freddie Freeman is not going anywhere. He's not going to be shifted to third base for whatever reason. Freddie Freeman is our first baseman forever, pretty much, for this series. So Freddie Freeman's going to stay there, and Cornelius is probably going to be, if he does start for us in the future, he is going to be a corner outfielder. He's not going to be playing first base for us. Corner outfield is where his future is with the Atlanta Braves organization. And as far as when he could be with the MLB team, I would say as early as next season. He could be on the team next year, right out of camp, on the regular season opening day roster. So he could possibly make the team like that. I wouldn't say he might not start. There's definitely a lot of guys we have to look at. Guys like Leon Fan, guys like Bill Escalona, possibly sign somebody in the offseason. Maybe we trade for somebody at the deadline. There's definitely a few more options and a few more things that could happen to this team that'll kind of derail Cornelius' path to the big leagues as a corner outfielder. But as of the roster right now, he is a guy who we have to look at to be on the roster as a corner outfielder next year. He could provide some pop. That's a big issue with our team right now. And he could provide some pop off the bench, even if he doesn't start, because right now we don't really have too much pop coming off the bench. He could be a guy who could play first and corner outfield off the bench for us. So it's going to be interesting to see where he slots in as the future player in this franchise. But with that being said, it's going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Prospect Profile. I've been your host, Jersey Born, and I'm saying goodbye.
sitting here sober, but I wonder what shape she'll find me in. I need her under my skin, like a junkie needs heroin. And I'm never going back to snaking Jake's. The amount of money